to start the show. We're recording, so I guess one thing. Have you heard about Xavier Worthy?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's that. There was a weird criminal charge of assault against a family or by a household member by impeding breathing or circulation. I've never heard it said like that. Well, in the old days, we used to call it choking them out, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
they define it as impeding their breath or circulation. So that doesn't sound good, Dennis.
No, and they apparently needed to branch out as far as the rest of the Kansas City wide receiver room because right now under contract, of course, you got Hollywood Brown, who in 2023 was arrested for going 128 miles an hour in his car
Oh boy,
because
I forgot about that.
He was late for practice.
Yeah,
You had Rashi Rice, who got into that accident,
yeah.
over 100 mile an hour.
Wow.
And now you got, choking somebody out. It's just,
Andy
those are the,
Reid cannot be happy. I'm surprised,
oh God.
yeah. Can you imagine? He,
Well, and the weird thing is before I read that news this morning,
yeah,
I was thinking about all of the old time, I saw a couple of posts about what some of the football players and baseball players used to do during their off seasons.
yeah,
Because obviously, it was only a part-time job, really. You didn't,
right.
and Stan Musial, the famous,
Oh yeah.
baseball player with the Cardinals, used to work at the grocery store of his in-laws. So off seasons, you'd see Stan Musial at the checkout counter, you know, checking
Oh,
people's groceries out. A guy hit 340 the year before, and here he is, bagging groceries and checking people out. In football players, was the same way. They all had their regular job, whether it was selling cars or insurance or whatever they did. But ever since these guys have gone to where they don't need another job, when they've got more money than they'll know what to do, man, the legal troubles for these guys goes through the
well,
roof.
I think the what you just described was keeping the common touch, right?
Yeah.
Our politicians act like
Yes.
they'll go into the store and buy a carton of eggs and yeah, this is play the game, and all politicians do. But in the old days, I mean, when Davy Crockett went to Congress, went there, did business, came back home, and was, hunting, fishing, trapping, doing farming. I mean, that's what it was all about. The politician would go for a while, then come home and do the real work with the family, and that common touch I think is missing in a lot of professions,
Yeah.
and athletes are one. I think if, imagine, if Worthy was working in his, something with his parents or hanging around. I mean, it would just be a little harder to kind of get into trouble. I think you just sit around, you got all this money, and there's a lot of people, a lot of things that you can get in trouble with if it doesn't take much for those to find you if you have a lot of idle time, right? And I think missing the common touch, and that happens, and I just wonder. My daughter, I guess we're getting philosophical. At least I am. When I would help my grandfather repair his diesel or, that kind of thing, it just reminded me here's somebody that didn't have a formal education and this is what their life was and that kind of thing. And it makes you appreciate opportunities. And I think that's missing from a lot of things. And certainly our politicians don't have it. They act like they do, have the grandstand, but a lot of them don't. And frankly, I think these days, Dennis, if you're into the common world, you like now. Why do I want to be a politician? The good people probably should be politicians are not going to be because they know it's just too much, and I think we've lost that a little bit. I lament not having that connection with the common folk and the common touch in a lot of things, sports, science, even. It's there's a lot of kind of hiding in your own world, and I think people miss hanging out with the real folks down on Main Street. I think our generation, I just don't know, because like I said, I remember growing up and, uh, just doing a lot of things that were just what everybody on the street, we were rake the yard. I'd plow. My grandparents had a garden, in the Depression, they wanted a garden.
Oh
Grandmother
yeah.
still canned.
Yep.
She did quilts. I mean, we'd buy a bushel peas every year and put them up and in the freezer. We'd all sit around a big tub and shell peas and that kind of thing. And that I don't think kids do. My daughter hadn't done that. My wife did the same thing growing up, and I think that's some of it. And I'm not saying we go back or anything, but that's going to be missing. And so the generations, we don't understand the new kids because they're grew up and we didn't have all that all the time.
Now, and I think there's a lot to be said about that because you know, I was the part of the first generation in my family that got to go to college.
That kind of thing. Yes.
Okay. And it was you you understood how important that was. Okay. And my mom didn't even graduate high school. She had to quit high school her junior year to come home and take care of her sister who was mentally retarded and had a epilepsy and all these other mental and physical difficulties, so she couldn't attend school. And back then they didn't have special school for the kids, so
Really.
my mom actually quit school to take care of her sister, and that way both her mom and dad could work full time to support the family. And my dad did graduate high school, but while he was in high school, held down a job so his family could, make ends meet. We forget what that was like. And I see so many people talking about, oh, back in the day when only one income used to support the family. And I'm like, guys, you also purchased a TV by doing it on layaway and bought it over the course of a whole year before
Yeah.
you could take the daggone thing home with
Right.
you. You did a lot of that kind of stuff. And, I remember my dad going, my mom and dad would always go out Christmas shopping the Friday before Christmas. Didn't
Yeah.
matter how late that was. If it was Christmas Eve, that was it, because that was the day my dad got his bonus check. And that was going to be holiday money. That was it. So, sometimes we had the money to buy a tree the week before, but that
Yeah.
was it. And, I think we all kind of take the luxuries we have now for granted. And I know I make that same mistake. I mean, it's crazy that in the palm of your hand you can get more information than you used to get by spending an entire day in the library. And I can get everything at my fingertips now.
Yeah.
It's just crazy how life has changed. But for these professional athletes, I think the college NIL money will actually change this a bit. But some of the guys that are out right now, they came, they were just getting some of that NIL money. in college at the end of their playing careers. So we might see a more mature, different player coming out because they made the mistakes in college by having too much money, you know. So maybe we'll see that in the future, but you know, I can't imagine what it would have what it would have been like growing up the way I did, not having much. You know, I never went without food. I never went without the stuff I really needed, but we didn't have a lot of luxury items when I was growing up, even. Um, but if you could imagine going from that lifestyle to all of a sudden having millions of dollars at your exposure, you know, to be able to spend, I probably would have gotten in trouble at age 20, 21, 22 myself. I mean, I can't imagine how much I would have screwed up if I would have had money when I was in
Yeah.
those dumb years in the early 20s. And I say dumb years, it's just because you don't have the realization of this is life changing. Like you couldn't make that decision a lot of times that, hey, if I do this, this is a life changing moment. I don't think you've lived long enough to have that level of common sense kick in sometimes.
And, common sense is what I see people could take a lesson in from data analysis, Dennis. I'm actually
Yeah.
going to, on the show, show you a learning moment in stats. It's like you want something to be real. You're gonna like it, and because it's been a while since it's been like a year since I really started getting into the data here, and I'm gonna show you something. And it's like, boy, I needed this to be the way I think it is, and then nope, it's not. Or there's a surprise there. So I've got some stuff today. And by the way, I really liked your article. I made figures. Did you see
Yes.
yeah, so I
Yeah.
went ahead and did percentages. I think it clarified things a little bit on the between the years so people could see, when there were big changes or really when there wasn't changes in the distribution. And I think we're to talk about that on the show, let you walk us through that again, and kind of set the table for later when we're using MVP as a guide with the other metrics to point us, looking for some bargains and things. But I really enjoyed it. Uh, Grammarly enjoyed it. We went through a lot of changes. So, but anyway, I got some uh, uh, when you just to let you know when you put that uh, from the Google Docs and you paste it in, it doesn't paste like a table.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's probably some, I don't know, stuff that I don't know. I just copy and put it into a spread, drop it into PowerPoint and make a JPEG figure and come back and insert it into the article. It's a little bit more complex, but it comes out pretty clean and people can look at that and whatnot.
That
So
editor, you know, he is the best in the business.
yeah,
I
well,
will tell you that.
but anyway, I think we got a lot to talk about, and I've got some questions for you, and they're
Very
probably
good.
more like, well, I've just got some points I want to hear what you think, and it's not the end, Dennis. It's just the beginning of some things that we're doing in our off-season research, and it is off-season research time. So
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
looking forward to getting into that. I think we ought to hit that, and we'll do the quarterbacks on the Bush figure. And just to update you, I just finished the uh, the running back spreadsheet, so I'm going to uh, uh, have years of experience data in with what I've done before. We've done that with tight ends and whatnot, and looking at career arcs and things, a little bit different. And so we'll have running backs to look at as well. So I hope to have some of that beginning data next week, and then we'll move on to wide receiver. So hopefully by the end of March, I'm on to the com data and updating that and getting into that. So I'm hoping by the end of April, I'll have my 2 or 3 data streams that we can add to yours and start getting an initial build of our multiple kind of, across the metrics view of players. And I guess Evan Ingram, he popped up on the linear regression model that he didn't have a lot of bad games. It wasn't great games, but it wasn't bad, and that balance is unusual. And he popped up in that metric stream, and now they let him go, and I'm curious where he ends up because I think he's going to be probably a target for my best ball second tight end type. I have a feeling that he, assuming he goes somewhere, I saw somebody thinking he would fit with KC, but I just don't know if they would. I mean, Noah Gray seemed to function well as the second tight end. I just didn't see that, but I don't know the contract with Noah Gray, but it seemed to me that he was a good balance with Kelsey. I didn't think they needed a third tight end at Kansas City, but I don't know. I haven't thought where Ingram may go or not go. I don't
Yeah,
know if you've, yeah,
Yeah, Gray is under contract until 27. So let's see. So he'll be back again. They
yeah.
also drafted Jared Wiley, who was
Mhm.
hurt all last year. So
Okay.
they actually do have 3 very good tight ends.
So
But
I'm just trying to figure out where Ingram
yeah,
goes. Have you
yeah,
thought about that or?
yeah. I don't really know. He could
I
end
mean,
up.
it looked like they were having a fire sale. They got rid of
Yeah,
Christian Kirk, and
yeah. I wouldn't be surprised to see him end up with the Chargers. To be honest with you.
that would be interesting.
Yeah, because Hurst is a free agent, so the only guy they have on contract right now is Disley, and they've got Stone Smart, who is also a restricted free agent, so he would fit with that program. And
Hmm.
we know how Harbaugh thinks about those veteran players. He loves those veteran players, so that might be a guy that would be a good fit. So it's going to be interesting because Ingram even talked a little bit about maybe this is it. He kind of teased out that retirement might not be too far away, when he got hurt last year. So it's it is that magical time of the year, Professor, where we don't even know
Yeah,
what we don't even know.
yeah, that's just big. I,
Well,
I
let's
want to.
jump. Yep,
Yeah,
let's jump
let's do.
into the
Yeah,
regular show
yeah,
and we'll get on to it. And so much to cover here
yep.
on the science of fantasy football. Here we go.
Okay.
How you doing, everybody? This is Dennis Michelson. Welcome to the science of fantasy football. Why the science of fantasy football? Well, when you get a meteorologist and a biologist together and they believe in using honest science, you're going to get better statistical outlooks. And since fantasy football is driven by statistics, that means you are going to have a better chance of winning in the years ahead if you apply the scientific method. Very simply, folks, it requires you to use statistics to guide you to the answer. I know, so much more fun cherry picking those stats to meet what you expect to happen. And joining me as he does each and every week, he is the fantasy professor. He's a real professor emeritus. It's John Bush. John, so much happening in the world of the off season of the NFL, and we haven't even gotten to official tampering season yet.
Yeah, you're excited about this. I think
Oh yeah.
being a dynasty, hero that you are, uh, I think it really invigorates you. You like this where there's lots of moving pieces and it seems to create at least apparent opportunities, but sometimes I wonder, is it a real opportunity? Geno
Oh,
Smith moving, is that a
oh.
real opportunity or is that fool's gold? And I'm glad you are there to help me out because I am uh, deep into my metrics and data and stats, and so uh, Dennis, that's what you need to do. That's why I say people need to partner up. Find somebody who loves, keeping track of all these moving pieces. And so I'll just wait till about, best ball season. I'll just say, okay, Dennis, take me through it now. Where's the next Puka? Where's the Bucky Irvins for this year? Lay it down for me. And Dennis has done well, and I'm listening, and I'm looking forward to your analysis. That's going to be evolving. You're not planting all the flags now. You're just, it's kind of like hot and cold. Is this warmer, colder? Kind of the game you'd play as a kid. That's how I think about it right now. So with Geno going to the Raiders, it seems a little colder, and then if Sam Darnold goes to Seattle, seems a little warmer, but maybe losing Metcalf and some of the others. So, does it kind of get back to neutral? So it seems to me there's a lot of juggling of opinions and things, and my only warning for folks is don't get too down to the bottom of the metrics here. Keep this landscape view of the whole team and what they're trying to accomplish. And we don't know what some places we don't know what they're trying to accomplish. Raiders, for instance, in Seattle, but maybe there's more to it than we realize, Dennis.
Yeah, and here's the weird thing is we talk about all the uncertainty, all the craziness going on right now.
Yeah.
We actually have more solved quarterback situations going into camp this year than we had last year at
Hmm.
this time. And I know that's hard to believe,
It,
but
it does seem that way. Yeah.
last year, and I look back at my notes at this time last year, I said, I think there are 17 teams that absolutely positively know what they're doing at quarterback next year. 17 teams. And that doesn't mean that some of those 17 couldn't possibly upgrade in free agency or a trade or something. But I felt pretty confident that those 17 teams were pretty happy with where they were at quarterback heading into free agent season and then the draft season. And right now, I got 26 teams that are in that situation right now. The odd guys out, the odd six teams that have absolutely no clue what they're doing at quarterback right now.
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland,
Mm-hmm.
Deshaun Watson won't be ready. New York Giants.
Mm-hmm.
I even saw somebody on fantasy football Twitter suggesting they might re-sign Daniel Jones. How
Yeah.
insane of a commentary was that? The New York Jets, they said they're not going to bring Rodgers back. Pittsburgh, is it going to be Fields? Is it going to be Russell Wilson? Will it be somebody totally new? Who knows? Now it's Seattle getting rid of Geno Smith. Now it's Seattle. Maybe they go Sam Howell and they just say, you know what? We are a long way from competing. We're a middle ground team. We're a 10-7 team. We're gonna lose Metcalf. We're going to lose some other pieces. We're probably going to lose our left tackle. We're going to probably trade him before he's eligible for a new contract in a year or two. And now we got rid of our quarterback. Maybe they're just going to say, you know what? We'll be in the Arch Manning competition here and hope that a great quarterback like Arch Manning, we don't even know if Arch Manning is a great quarterback yet. But that's the idea, is maybe we play for we just have a bad year. We reset our cap, have a bad year, and be ready in 26 with a fresh quarterback. I don't know. And Tennessee, you got Will Levis, but you also have the number 1 pick. Do you grab somebody? Do you trade back a little bit and maybe still get get a shot at a quarterback to take on Will Levis? Who knows? But those are the 6 teams that I have absolutely no idea right now what they might settle for at the quarterback position. The other teams we kind of know. Atlanta's got Penix. He's not going anywhere. Kyler Murray's not going anywhere for Arizona. Of course, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are there. Bryce Young was good enough at the end of the year that I think he's the answer in Carolina for a little while. Caleb Williams isn't going anywhere. Bears are happy with him. You got Burrow in Cincinnati, unless they do something weird and trade him. They're talking about trading everybody else. Then you got Dallas renegotiating with Dak Prescott. He's not going anywhere. Bo Nix isn't going anywhere. Jared Goff's not going anywhere. Jordan Love's the answer in Green Bay.
Mahomes?
Stroud. What's that?
Mahomes
is there. Yeah. Stroud. I even have Indianapolis on that. I had them
Derek Carr from New Orleans. You think they're going to go somewhere else?
No, he's staying. I even have Richardson staying this year. So they'll put some competition, but they're not going to be in the quarterback market. Stafford looks like he's staying at Los Angeles. You got Geno now for Vegas, and they're even talking about lengthening his contract, renegotiating.
Wow.
You got Tua. You got I know he's not played it down in the NFL, but Minnesota's got their quarterback. JJ's got the job. Maybe he'll be good, maybe he'll be bad, but he's got the job. Drake May looked like the answer in New England. Yeah. Carr's not going anywhere, folks. He's got a contract through 26. Mm-hmm. He's not going anywhere. They're going to go that route. So you have so many teams. I mean, Hurts is settled in.
Yeah.
He's not going anywhere. Purdy is the quarterback for San Francisco. Mayfield's got Tampa Bay locked down, and Jaden Daniels for Washington. So those teams aren't going anywhere with their quarterback. They're pretty much set this year. But there's 2 spots I'm looking at that I can't wait to see how these teams fill these positions, because I think these are going to be great fantasy football options for next year. The Los Angeles Chargers released Gus Edwards.
I saw that.
J.K. Dobbins is the only other guy there, along with Kamani Vidal, the rookie. That's it. Chargers going to go and spend early in the draft, maybe second round for a running back. Or maybe they'll go after a Najee Harris. Could you imagine Najee Harris with the Chargers, and if he's got any juice left in those legs? But I think the Chargers that running back position is going to be a big fantasy football viable spot next year. And New England at wide receiver, could you imagine if they could grab one of the top rookie wide receivers? Maybe McMillan, the kid out of Arizona. That's an instant. That's a Malik Neighbors, a Brian Thomas like landing position. That's what we need to be thinking about this year. Not necessarily names to go in that slot, but positions that we want to see who lands there. And I guess now with the news out of Kansas City, we can add wide receiver for Kansas City as well.
Yep, I believe so. Sorry to hear that. Yeah.
But
Uh, yeah.
but
So Dennis, I would argue that uh, I don't know if we want to do an article. Maybe you should keep it secret stuff, but I would love to see, what your deeper thinking. I haven't thought. Again, you love this and thinking about the Patriots and who lands. See, I hadn't, I'm just kind of in my own data cave. I haven't woke up to these kind of interesting things yet. See, you're ahead of the game, so you need to tell me. I don't know if we want to tell the world, but you
but
know, I would
but it
love to
was
see Dennis's secret stuff. I really would.
but it was research that got me to those positions.
Yeah,
Because what I did last the here in the past week is I
yeah,
looked at the last 2 years
hmm
at wide receiver,
yeah,
and I looked at where the rookies landed
hmm
and who the competition was at wide receiver.
right.
And I discovered something real quick.
Okay.
If a team didn't have a wide receiver on the roster who had an 80 or more MVP index
hmm
in the last couple of years,
hmm
those were ripe positions. And on the contrary to that, if a team had two guys over 80 and they had two guys over 100, or they had one over 100 and a second over 80,
hmm
they had two guys over 80,
hmm
that landing position didn't work out.
hmm
Didn't work out with Smith Najigba at Seattle 2 years ago.
hmm
Didn't work out with Rome Odunze
hmm
in Chicago. Those are both top 15 draft pick guys.
hmm
They were high draft picks by both of their teams. They didn't have success year one. And that's, I guess Najigba actually went 20th in the draft, but that's still pretty high. And he was one of the top wide receivers taken.
And Dennis, remind me of this because um, it, when you just described that, it was like, yeah, I wonder what they would look like with the Bush number or the com.
Yes.
You see,
Yes.
I hadn't, I like to think landscape, and what you just described was a team landscape, and you're
Yes.
using your view to actually anticipate future patterns, right? You're a pattern guy and
Yes.
you're finding these patterns and you don't yeah, that clicked hard with me what you just said. So I just is the part where it was so interesting. I can't forget this. So Dennis, just remind me we need you and I need to, stir the cauldron and find maybe when we get our five metrics is we got last year's data. I'm curious using last year's, can we spot patterns for this year? I mean, sounds like you've already done that. I'm curious, and it makes sense that you have a level, and if there's not players at that level, and remember, we're defining it, not this generic wide receiver one. What does that mean? Versus MVP 80. That means to me a lot more than just wide receiver one. Uh, that is nebulous. By having a statistical metric to that I think opens the door, and that's our strength is we're going to define that versus RB2. What's that mean? I mean, really, what is that? What is an RB2? Some places it's somebody that's really good on third down and their rusher.
Yes.
Another
Yes.
place in RB2 is a pass catching kind of person, that comes in. And so they're both considered RB2s, but they have different roles in the landscape. And I think that's part of it is trying to think about it like that in a different way. And so, Dennis, that was just really good what you said. Sometimes things hit me, and that hit me. I don't know why I hadn't thought about that in the last 10 or 15 years. I have never used metrics even before we started working together. I don't know. I needed some broadening, and that's why I have groups of people helping you do research differently allows these kind of things to pop in. And I've never heard other people think about it like that. Maybe they have. I, I, I don't listen to all the podcasts. I rarely listen to podcasts other than ours. And, but that's a great idea. I would love to see, I don't know if we want to publish it, but I would love to see your landscape, your MVP landscape. Let's call it that, MVP landscape for, I mean, because you know that because it's, but I need to either generate it or something. I need to look at that, Dennis. We need to think about that.
And it's all about opportunity.
And
Okay.
it's
And
the patterns. And
but
you wrote this article that I've got up for
yes.
folks, and I know we're going to slide into that. And to me, what you just said is that pattern search, and that's why I think it's really good. Go ahead.
Yeah. And this article actually came as a result of trying to find the pattern that fit at wide receiver. And I realized that pattern recognition is so key because in order to prepare for this coming season, the 2025 season,
Mm-hmm.
we don't know what we don't know yet.
Cool.
But if we can start getting an idea of how things might occur and might react, how people might react to what's going on. But in order to do that, you've got to figure out where the pattern is. And that's what this article was all about. As I look back at performance by
Mm-hmm.
different levels using just my MVP index,
Mm-hmm.
because that is describing the three things that happen every week in fantasy football.
Mm-hmm.
Two of them are good, one of them's bad. And you don't want the bad happening.
Sure.
But when you factor in big game potential with median performance percentage, which again, Mr. Bob Long, the founder of the Fantasy Football Expo, the godfather of consistency in fantasy football, the MVP wouldn't exist without the work that he did that got me thinking about how to measure consistency. And I just measure it a little bit different than he does. I'm not saying it's better than how he measures it. I just think it's a specific way that makes sense to me. And that's what we need to do as scientists. We need to take from the greats, take the great ideas and make them our own. Try to make them better, but make them functional for what we're trying to figure out in the sport. And when I looked at it, my main concern here, looking at the patterns, had nothing to do with quarterbacks and tight ends, but I did the study just because you want to be thorough. I wanted to see, are the decisions we're making as fantasy football players, who we're deciding to draft first, are we guided more by emotion or by the data? And Professor, when you look at the data using my MVP index as a measure of greatness, because it takes injuries out of the equation a little bit. And you look at how players performed, there's really no difference between running back and wide receiver as far as early or, success, I guess. Did he live up to expectations? If you look at the top running back taken last year, he was drafted number 1, of course. Christian McCaffrey didn't live up to that billing. Now, it was injury based last year, but that still counts. The number 1 wide receiver was taken with a second pick. He didn't live up to expectations. That was Tyreek Hill. Didn't even come close. But this year, knowing that we struggled at both running back and wide receiver with that number 1 pick, which way are we going to go? Are we going to go wide receiver? Or are we going to go running back? My data says that the running backs did better overall. The early running backs performed as well, if not a little bit better, if you look at the total number of players hitting at different threshold values. Yet we drafted wide receivers earlier than running backs, even though the previous 2 years there was no difference between positions, except for the random injuries, which you can't guess. Yet I believe that the reason that result came about, Professor, is because we are bombarded with late running back as a strategy. And I think that has changed the mentality, not the data that's changed the mentality. That's what my study, I think, showed me.
Before we circle back to that, Dennis, you just said a real key word. You said you wanted to look at all of it to be thorough. And I don't know if you remember, I sent you a discussion on Twitter, and it was about stock market traders versus basically what they call quants, which are basically PhD scientist type that look at the data versus traders. And this article was saying there are communication problems between traders and quants, and he hit 2 bullet points. He said people who have completed a PhD tend to develop a tendency to be thorough. And you just said it. I wanted to be thorough. And like I said, Dennis, you could have been in a PhD. We could have showed you the secret handshake. Life just put you away, but you could have been in a secret club. And it said traders, and who does this sound like? Impatient, need simplistic descriptions. Most of their time solving problems is unable to provide. Spent most of the time solving problems is unable to provide. They seem flashes and abstraction and mistaken for short attention span. So basically, they're not thorough. They're the opposite of thorough. And that's why get so deep into the metric, because I want to do everything. I just have this need. I can't walk out without being thorough. Dennis, I found early on in my personality, I either start something and it will be completely done, finished, or I shouldn't even start it. So I'm really good at sitting on the couch doing nothing, and I'm good at that. Or I'm just a whirlwind and just so focused. And, when I was single and had no family responsibilities, I just live in the lab 80 to 100 hours a week. I mean, I just never left. We have hospital food for lunch and supper. Okay. If you've ever had hospital food, some are good, some are not. It's kind of like cafeteria food, the old mystery Salisbury steak. What is that? Is that cat? That armadillo, is that nutria? What is that? It's got gravy on it, so it tastes good. But anyway, I thought the fact that communication, this article discusses in stock market, the traders versus the researcher types, that they can't communicate because they just do things differently, and the thoroughness puts you in a different track than those that are looking for more simplistic descriptions, i.e., that sounds a lot like Twitter when I go there and people will make these claims and it just sounds, it's like, yeah, but you're not telling me the whole story. You're just taking a tidbit, and it's just like that's just, I want to, if I'm going to eat something, I want the whole thing. I don't want a little taste and move on. And it just sounds like they're tasting, oh, that's great. Best ever. Next. I mean, it sounds a lot like I see on Twitter with fantasy, Dennis. So that was just a commentary. When you used the word thorough, that's what hit me. It's like, yeah, that's why Dennis and I, really jive together. Is that there's, let's call it a burn to it. You just got to have it. You just can't. You're not satisfied. I think if you're an artist, I think you have this. It's like you finish it, but it doesn't look finished. I got to do more. If you're doing a song or something, it's like, I got to add something. It stays with you. Can't put it down. And I think a lot of authors, when they'll write like an article, Dennis, like you did with this, I always feel like once you've written it, you probably want to add more to it or redo it. And you just don't. In other words, if you don't stop that, you'll be sitting there working on one article the whole season. And you can't do that either. You do have to dynamite yourself and move on. You can't be so thorough that you don't get anything done. So that's our problem is we get too deep and you got to pull your head out of the water or you'll drown. And that's what I think we learn in data analysis patterns is, we're not to the point where we're just drowned over one piece. We've got to move on and do the best we can. So even we know we're not being thorough as we would want to be. And you can imagine people that are not thorough at all, they don't even understand that. Well, you figured it out enough. No, it's never enough. It's just, okay, I'm gonna stop. And that's the difference, Dennis. So I really like this article, Follow the Patterns or Pattern in Drafting. I changed the title Drafting because that's really, I think right now that would call people. And I like the diary concept that people should talk about. So why don't you take us through the article here and just highlight, and then people, this is Science of Fantasy Football. It's Follow the Patterns, and it's a great article, and I think it should inspire you to be more thorough about something this off season. Pick two or three things and figure it out. There's lots of places to find the data. Be thorough like Dennis and I.
And here was so when I set about to do this study, it was specifically trying to give me a glimpse into what was causing our differences in how we're drafting. Because if you look at the players, and I like to call them my elite players, 100 plus in MVP.
Here's the chart of the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
For
so
example,
100 plus.
There were 7 last year.
There were 7. So what that tells me is that there's 7 guys that, let's say this was an auction draft and I could be smarter than everybody else because I knew what their final bid was going to be and I could plan my team out. I would want to have a quarterback. I would want my starters to all have 100 or more as an MVP index.
Mm-hmm.
because the way I calculate MVP, that tells me that they are helping my team out almost every week. Like there's very few bad weeks in, 100 plus MVP guy. That's the guy you want on your squad. And so when I look at quarterbacks, what I wanted to see is, are we drafting that first one too early? Okay. That was when it came to the quarterback side of this study, that's what I wanted to learn. How big is the elite class of quarterbacks? Is it changing? And
so when you say elite, you mean 120?
100 plus. No, 120 is super elite.
Okay.
So I give different definitions.
I mean, 4 out of the 7.
That's super elite. Man.
So do you have a pattern? In other words, will you take number 7 versus having a shot at the top 4? If you were 100% perfect in 2025, in other words, if you, and maybe, I don't know I don't know this, in the teams that we won last year and we both made money, did they all of them have the super elites, or did you have 100 play the elite? If so, what did the rest of your team look like? In other words, if you had all super elites across the board, was that overkill, or is it better to have an elite quarterback and super elite running backs and wide receiver? You see the balance. That was the question I had looking at your pattern, Dennis, and I think there's more studies, but I would be curious if you looked at your winning teams last year and looked at mine. I could show you mine, my 7, and let you. We need to look at that. What's the landscape of our winners? That might give us insight.
Yeah, in last year, my best teams in redraft. Okay, one quarterback redraft.
One draft.
My best teams were the ones where I waited on quarterback. I didn't have the super elite guy. Now I ended up having some very good quarterback play, but that was because Baker Mayfield increased from a 64.7 in 2023 on the MVP to a 129.
So he went and doubled. And how rare is that? I don't remember that happening a lot.
Well, for him, it's even more rare because he was a minus 36 in 2022.
Wow, that's crazy, Dennis.
He has
talk about variation.
Oh yeah. So he has landed with the right team. There's no question about that. And he has had a super year. Now that doesn't mean I wouldn't bet on him to be over 120 this year. It's that he'll probably have a regression. But that was the key if he
regresses to 100,
that's still
like
good.
I said, my issue, can you still win? Can you win a league with 100?
Yes. So my other winning teams.
That's another way to ask the question.
Yes, correct. And my other winning teams, my other winning team was where I had Jordan Love and Jared Goff. Goff ended up with a 105.9 MVP, and Love was an 84.6.
So you had some streaming to do.
But I Frankenstein between the two, and I built myself a quarterback that was over 100 every week. Like if you look at who I picked to play that week, I was about a 110 on the MVP. And yes, folks, I actually do that. I grade myself on how well I picked my quarterback when I Frankenstein it. But I had a lot of teams last year, Professor, where it was Mayfield, Goff, Love. I had 2 of the 3. Those teams performed very well. The rare team that I went early and took a Josh Allen or a Jalen Hurts, I was a contender, but I didn't do as well. And, Allen was a 112 and Hurts was a 107. So they were both over that 100, but the cost of getting them did not pay off. I had a winning team with Burrow because I liked Joe Burrow a lot last year because I thought the Bengals defense would be horrible. And it was. He was a 129 on MVP. That was another guy that won leagues for me last year. I did not have success when I picked Allen, Hurts, or Mahomes last year. Now, Mahomes had a horrible year for Mahomes. He was 87.5. So he was way down versus what you would want from the quarterback, and you were paying for him.
Yeah, that's what got you is the
correct.
pay.
It's
if
always
you could have got him 10th round, okay.
Yes.
But having to pay 4th, 5th round for him, that hurt you.
It's always the cost at quarterback. Again, last year, what did I say? I want the 4th quarterback off the board.
Right.
If I can't get the 4th quarterback off the board, then I'm going to take 2 of the next tier of guys. And that's how I ended up with Burrow, Mayfield, Goff, Love. Those were my 4 most.
So you had 11 targets, and in 22 you had 10. But look at 23, you had 5.
Yes.
So you see that variation. That I don't like that. I hate that we're drafting quarterbacks. So to me, is 2025 an 11-10 or is it a 5? If it's a 5, then boy, you better have. I mean, you're going to be struggling. But the good news is everybody's going to be struggling. So how do you do? I hadn't thought in 2023 how I did. I made money, but I actually did a little better this year. I wonder if you look at your ROI and start looking across at, say, your MVP, is there a pattern that on lean years like 2023, I'm lean on my ROI, or maybe that's your best year? It would be nice to know that, Dennis. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and if you look back to 2022 and 2023, I was talking about the elite 3 quarterbacks. I wanted one of the top 3 quarterbacks in both those years. Last year, I said I want the cheapest at 4 through 6. Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to, and I was more willing to Frankenstein a quarterback together by taking 2. Remember how often I was taking quarterbacks 7th and 8th rounds back to back.
Yep.
Or 8th and 9th rounds or 7th and 9th. I was taking my second quarterback very quickly because I wanted to have 2 shots at it. And some of that was a concern over Burrow's health. I was a little concerned about the wrist. Some of it was Jared Goff, home away splits. But those, when you put a group of guys, and then Baker Mayfield was my bailout guy. He was my, okay, I need somebody to go with Goff or Burrow or Love. I'm going to pick Mayfield because he's definitely got a job and he was on the improve. And again, this goes back to horse racing analogies. And when I'm handicapping a horse for a particular race, and this is more of an harness racing than thoroughbreds. In harness racing, in open company, okay, so allowance races, or in those in harness racing, those are non-winners of is they don't call them allowance races, or open company, claimers. If you have a 4-year-old harness horse who is improving, and you're talking like from May through October, that was your best bet, man. If you had an improving 4-year-old, that was the bet. The analogy or the comparison in fantasy football is an improving quarterback on a team that has to score. So in other words, I look at the defense and I say, man, they're going to give up a lot of points this year. And he improved last year versus the year before. You look at that, you're like, okay, I'll take it. In the case of Burrow, it was every healthy season he has had. He's been over 100, 120 most of those years. The only thing that's ever held him back is injury. That's the kind of guy I'm going to bet on, but I'm going to bet on him by having another guy in reserve. And that guy in reserve, based on cost last year, was Mayfield. Based on cost this year, it may not be Mayfield. I also had some Jaden Daniels as my backup. That worked out where my backup was better than my starter.
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of things you can't plan for in fantasy football.
Right.
But if your strategy is sound, that's why I'm always looking. I want 100+ guys. That's what I want. If I draft 100+ guy and he has a bad year, his bad year is going to be in the upper 80s.
Right.
If I draft 100 guy and he has a good year, he's going to be over 120. He's going to be super elite. So that's kind of my strategy. And looking ahead to 2025, I think that group, if I had to gamble right now and I said, okay, over under on 7 guys finishing with over 100 on the MVP.
Yep.
And when I say finishing over 100, that means they also had to play 10 or more games.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm setting the bar pretty high. 10 or more games is a good season. Like, I'll take it. Do I want my guy to miss 7 games? No, but I'll take it. You know, I'll take 10 games, 10 good games. And if I had to guess if that number is going to be over or under 7, I'd say I think it's going to be slightly over this year. Okay. I think if any, and that's going against the 3-year history, because 7's the high.
It's a high.
But I think it'll be 7 or 8 this year. So that's how I look at the quarterback position and say, this is how I'm planning. I'm going to let somebody else have Lamar Jackson. He had a spike year last year. He has not had 2 big years in a row. He's usually more in the 80 to 90 range, 80s and 90s. It's an awfully good quarterback. It's a starter, but you're going to have to pay too much for him. So I'm probably not going to take Lamar Jackson a lot this year. I probably won't have any Josh Allen. I probably won't have much in the way of Jalen Hurts unless they come in lower on ADP than I think they will. Yeah. Right now, I think they'll be gone before I want them. And I'm thinking Jaden Daniels would be that way as well. Yeah. But the guys I'm looking at, Burrow, I think Joe Burrow will back up last season. I kind of like Goff again this year. And Jordan Love won't scare me. So I'll take those 3 guys. If I can have one of those as my starter, I kind of like that. And then I'm going to probably add guys like Drake May, Bo Nix. Those are guys that I think are going to improve this season and be threatening to hit that 100 mark. And if I'm wrong, they're probably going to be in the mid to upper 80s, but they came cheap or cheaper than some of those elite guys, which allows me to add more running backs and wide receivers. But that's the logic. That's how I use this data to get a theory on March the 8th on how I'm going to draft at the position. By June 15th, I could have a very different idea to that. You have a hypothesis, you have a theory, you have a game plan. That doesn't mean you don't change your game plan.
Right.
as you see how the data is unfolding. But that's what, even though this study had nothing to do with quarterback, that's why I was more thorough and included the quarterbacks so I could pick up on that psychology
Mm-hmm.
of where we're drafting quarterbacks. Because the last 3 years, if you look at the top 6 quarterbacks taken, now again, I'm this. Here's the problem with this study: is I didn't want it to be too detailed. So when I say top 6, I looked at first, third, and sixth. Now, second, fourth, and fifth, if I included all of those, it might change my opinion. And before draft season, I will do that part of the study. But this was just a snapshot study to see, and I was okay with having some built-in flaws, knowing that I had built-in flaws. But if I look at first, third, and sixth quarterbacks off the board, the last 3 years, I got 2 of them. I'm sorry. Yeah, 2 of them that exceeded expectations. And when I say exceeded, that means they were 3 or more positions better than where they were drafted, or even if they were drafted 1, but they had a super season, I still considered them hitting above expectations. So in other words, if a guy was drafted as the first quarterback and he put up a 140, he cannot finish any higher than first. But if he hit at a 140 pace, that's above expectations, even for the first quarterback taken. But only 1 guy hit that. Or I'm sorry, 2 hit that. That's not a great hit percentage. So I look at that, and 3 were way under expectations. So 2 hits out of 9. 1, 2, 3, 4 worse than the 9, and then the rest about met expectations. That's not great for a result of picking winners and losers, in my opinion, but it shows the randomness of what can happen at the quarterback position or any position in fantasy football. You're not going to be perfect, Professor, but if you build a game plan understanding your imperfection, that's why I took 2 quarterbacks more last year, back-to-back rounds. It was admitting I might be wrong on one of these guys. And if I'm right on both of them, great. Now I have no problem at the quarterback position. But that was the basis for what I did in this study.
Gotcha. You know what? I'm curious. It would be nice if you looked at ADP level or even round. What's the expected MVP
Yes.
for round 5 and above versus 6 to 10 versus after 10? Just kind of, so you kind of know, just randomly, you're not doing any other picking, just I'm randomly sticking in there. What should I get an 80 after round 10? Should I get 100 after round 5? Is that a bargain? Should I get a 120 in the first, 4 rounds? Is that a bargain? That kind of thing. In other words, I would like to see that on top of this data, Dennis. I think that would be interesting. Just big
And,
groups.
it's interesting that you say that, Professor.
Yeah.
After I got done with the study,
You want to be thorough.
so I had a couple of notes
Yeah.
at the bottom of my chart before I
Yeah.
turned it into a chart on the computer
Yeah.
that the editor then made look even better.
Yeah.
Expected MVP
Yeah.
by ADP.
Yeah. I like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how about this? Expected MVP by draft slot.
Yep.
So, in other words, original draft slot,
Mm-hmm.
how many guys picked in the first 10 spots
Yep.
in the real NFL draft?
Yeah.
hit an ADP, I'm hit an MVP of whatever.
So you're measuring draft capital versus MVP.
Draft capital versus MVP, and
Yeah,
also ADP
yeah, yeah.
in
Oh,
fantasy
yeah.
football
I like it.
against. Yeah. So those were my two notes
It
of,
seems to me a follow-up article, or
oh,
if
yeah,
we want to save it for secret stuff.
there will be lots of follow ups on this
Mhm.
because I will also be breaking down all of the positions. So,
And
from,
maybe
yeah,
Dennis, maybe we should, because I actually today on the Bush figure was going to hit quarterbacks.
let's
So
fit
we
quarterback.
could
Yes.
slide over, and
Yep.
then next week I hope to have some running back data we can slide over. Folks, if you want to see all these tables for all this, it's all there now, at least this slice. So go ahead and check this article. I'd become one with it. Here's how I would do it, folks. Here's your homework from the professor. Read it, take some notes, drop it, come back, read it again, and see if anything else hits you. And then bug Dennis. What is this stuff? And by the way, if you look, what is this crazy crap? Uh, Dennis, I have, right, MVP positional data discussion. I've got some of Dennis's stuff from last year. And look, MVP index background, introducing weekly values, his case, consistency, understanding position, introduction to MVP metric, why MVP metric works. Look at Dennis, this is gold here. And folks, it's free. Okay. And just go back and read this as well. So look at Dennis' article, go and look on what he does, how it came up with this, lots of stuff. So this is on our Science of Fantasy Football. DMC's MVP index background. That's what you want to see, and hit that hard, folks. It's all there. It's extra stuff, and we're not charging anything for it. Okay. It's just gold here, Dennis. And like I said, the editor gets crazy and cranky because you give away everything. Give away the farm, Dennis, but it's
And you,
there.
and you can see how rare it is to have a player that hits these values.
Yes.
We're talking the top 11, we're talking 11%. Like we're talking
Yes. The
a
super
small
elite
sliver.
11, 6, and 12. So
Yeah.
roughly 8%, something over the years. Or if you say 2023 was an outlier, think about it. Next year, we'll have 2025 to look at this. That's the good, folks. That's what the big payoff is every year it gets more and more good stuff added. So it gets better every year. It's like your recipe for gumbo. Every year you add a little bit more, and it just starts tasting better and better each year. And that's what's going to happen. And Dennis, your MVP gumbo for next year would be even better. Telling you.
And, and here's the third note on after my study
Yeah.
was to see, okay, a guy has an MVP index of 85.
Yeah.
What is his result the next year?
Yep.
Is he higher, lower, about the same? What is the variance from year
Uh-huh.
to year? Because even with great players,
Yeah.
the variance is pretty substantial. I don't think anybody had a better fantasy football year than Lamar Jackson last year. And some could say nobody had a better season as far as most value to his team in real football than Lamar Jackson. He had an unbelievable year. But the year before, his MVP was 93.8. 2022, he was in the 80s.
Mhm.
Last year was 141.2.
Well, that's crazy.
Where do you expect him to be next season? I can make an argument that he'll be maybe under 120.
Mhm.
And that's still a decent season because look at how many have 100%, 100 or higher, 18%. That's a small sliver of the data.
Yeah.
So if I say he's going to be down at maybe 105 next season,
Still not bad.
still pretty outstanding. But you're drafting that top quarterback. I want him to be 130 or higher. I want him to
Right.
be knocking it out of the park. And history tells us that we haven't been good at selecting the top quarterback
Right.
lately. So, over the last 3 years, we've not done a good job of that. And so maybe the consensus will do a bad job again. I mean, that's the way a good data study will lead you to more than a simplistic answer. I mean, I didn't need the data to tell me Lamar Jackson was the best quarterback in fantasy football. I was pretty much seeing that with my eyes. The data confirmed how spectacular his season was.
Yep.
But he was only 12 points better on MVP than Baker Mayfield, who you got as the 11th or 12th quarterback in the draft last year.
Yep.
So that's the big difference.
I like it. So while you're reading Dennis's stuff, I'm eventually going to get this out. I just it get Dennis have to fight. When I do this, it's like, okay, I figured it out. I'm moving on, and I know I need to do some video lessons. I got 141 slides done of my bush figure, Dennis. So that's a lot of videos here. So just to backtrack, in case you haven't been the last few weeks podcasts on the bush figure, it looks at kickers, running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends in weekly scoring compared with all of them. So each other. So I'm not looking at quarterback to quarterback. I'm looking at everybody, the top 48 weekly scores. And so I cut the pie into segments and I asked the question, do these segments, what impact does a player hitting weekly of these slices, I call them slices, obviously if 17 weeks you're in the top 48, that's insane. Nobody is that good. We've had some pretty close. CMC in his best years were pretty damn close, but not every week kind of thing. So what I did was this data, and I'm using principal component analysis, and you can go back and look at tight ends, and I have four slices. So the pie is in fourths, 1 to 48, 49th to 96th, 97 to 144, 145, and lower. And what happens with tight ends was the 145 to lower was actually inverse in value. In other words, you should penalize the player for being that sucky. And so with quarterbacks, it doesn't even make it to that. If you're 97th or worse, Dennis, it is bad news for your weekly success. It's hurting you.
Wow.
A quarterback is hurting you bad. It's minus 0.067. So, and in the top 48, it's plus 0.65. So it's exactly opposite. And this sets up an equation that I can measure per game players in these slices and convert it to what we call a linear regression version of the Bush factor. And so I have an equation and I look at it and get some data. And I've got a lot more data to look at, Dennis, but I'm just going to let you know here. Let's see. And so you can look at the slices and compare them over the years just to see what the difference in the first slice versus the second. And some years they were pretty far away. Other years they were a lot closer. So that's interesting. The fact that this number varies from 39 to 47,
Hmm.
so about 10%. So some years the slices are closer together, and so there's no breakouts. I guess in the years where there's like 2017, look at that, versus the next slice, big breakout here. In other words, I bet you a lot more super elites in 2017. Look at the quarterbacks for 2023. They're close together, 20, but still pretty far apart. So you can measure the difference here and see the years. I would love to see your MVP versus that, but just to see, does this difference mean anything? When you get into the data, you realize there's a lot of variation, Dennis, in quarterbacks and their success. So, anyway, I looked at slices, I looked at my equation, and I'm going to cut to the chase right here. This is uh, the slice version and the linear regression version of the Bush factor. And I scaled them to 100 because you see I had zero point 0.6 and zero point 0.5. So this way, when I scale it on a scale of 0 to 100, it's a lot easier for folks for me to realize here. And Lamar Jackson was number one in both ways to look at it. He was a 100. Baker Mayfield was number two. And Joe Burrow was a little bit different. In other words, Josh Allen was third in Bush slice value, but was below Burrow in the linear regression. In other words, Josh Allen had some bad weeks, a little
Yep.
bit more than Burrow. A little
Yep.
bit, not a
Yep.
lot, not a lot. But look at Burrow. He didn't give you bad weeks, but he didn't give you the greatest week. In other words, if you're in the 70s here and 80s there, the balance is meaning if you have a higher balance over here with the linear regression, that means you didn't have sucky weeks. And this means you didn't have great weeks. So Allen gave you some great weeks, but he kind of hurt you a couple weeks too. Jalen Hurts was balanced. Look at Jaden Daniels. Okay. Really hurt you or really helped you. And look at Goff. He had some bad weeks then, a
Oh yeah.
67. Yeah.
Yep.
And, but, that kind of thing. And again, this is just looking at different quarterbacks, and you can see, uh, the difference. Look at Darnold. Darnold's big name right now. He helped you, but boy, he hurt you with a 50. That's not good, right? That's about the worst. Having some bad games, that's not good. That's bad. So you can look at Stroud. Everybody thought Dennis Stroud was like quarterback three
Oh
type. He killed
yeah.
you.
He
Either
was
way you
awful.
go, he didn't bring anything. So Rogers, you could see who did what where, and any kind of balance towards the LR. If it was greater, then that means they had some sucky weeks relative to good weeks. But boy, Lamar Jackson and Mayfield stood head and shoulders above the next tier. If you figure the tiers here, Dennis. I mean, I could have averaged these two versions. I didn't, but you could here and whatnot. So I'll stop here and let you look at the pattern, see what you think. I don't know your MVP. You probably know that.
Very, very similar actually to your LR
Yeah.
version. Lamar Jackson on top,
Hmm.
and he had a 12-point gap, so that was just shy of 10% advantage
Hmm.
in MVP, and he was about 7.6 here over Mayfield. Mayfield and Burrow both came out with an identical 129.4 rating
And mine would
using
split them.
MVP. It split them. and that's interesting to me. Uh, Picked up on the Josh Allen uh, in the because he was only a 112
And he had
on
some bad
MVP.
games,
So
relative to the good game, the balance.
correct. And if you look at him over the 3 year period, 2022 he was 143. 2023 he was down to 123, and last year he was down to 112 on the MVP.
Mm-hmm.
So he's actually been going down in MVP. And similarly, Jalen Hurts has followed that same pattern. And you see where Hurts is on here, right about the same level with Josh Allen. And they were very close again on MVP last year, with Allen having that slight advantage. But I love this way that data breaks it down
Mm-hmm.
With that the LR version of the Bush figure, because
It
it
penalizes you.
penalizes.
It
Yeah.
penalizes players for hurting you. You could call
And
it the hurt index. It hurts
yeah,
you.
and in MVP, I'm not applying that. I'm applying that as a flat factor. So it's exactly one third, one third, one third when it comes to great games, average games, and sucky games.
Mm-hmm.
But the way you can look at it is, if you had a great game, that's like having a 2 point game for me in my rating system, versus a just a right around historical median is a 1 point game, and a sucky game is a -1. So a sucky game has twice the
I mean,
negative.
if I did the difference, somebody like Daniels would be 13 or so. That's
Yeah.
great. He
Yep.
really helped you. But look at Goff. He would be a minus
Yeah.
13.
Yeah.
He hurt you more than helped you compared to
You
Daniels.
you got good consistency out
Look
of
at
out
look
of
at
golf.
yeah, look at Mahomes.
Oof.
Hurt you
Yep.
a lot of weeks. Yeah.
Very interesting.
So we can look at that. Uh, and then I looked at years experience and looked at overall average for rookies year one. Minus 22. That's the worst of the worst, and it's probably not surprising because these are everybody, and you can see that over time that, and I think I talked about this, that it looked like it peaked around seventh or eighth year of experience, and then we declined. And remember, the amount of players surviving is going down at the same time. So if you look, you're starting to get 9, 10, you're starting to get a lot of lean data down here, not a lot of examples. So if I'm a dynasty player at year 5, I'm starting to get, it looks like there's a hit, and I'm wondering, and Dennis, it's just me. When I see this, my first thought, oh, this year 6, some of them were overdone. In other words, they cooked too long, and they're gone by year 7.
Yes.
And so the survivors are back up to where they were, even a little better. So I think that there's a shifting out, kind of a career arc to where we're losing folks here, and you're taking some of the bad players out of the equation, and what's surviving years 7 and 8 are pretty good, and then we're having another uh, kind of cut down. Year 9, 10. Who's left is still, age, everything's starting to catch up with them here. So I think for Dynasty, when you look at the number of players going down and their performance, and you can kind of start making some suggestions. Look at the rookies. Overall, I know they're hot root, but I look at everybody, Dennis. This is not, you don't judge all rookies here, Dennis. You got to have common sense. But I like to look at these overall patterns, reference class forecasts. In other words, what is an average expectation for rookie quarterback? Not good. But look at year two, they really increase. Year three, not a lot. Year four, boy, they really take off year five. I'm wondering if there's, there's some folks leaving, and who's left is the best. And then we have some duds, you get rid of them, and then you're peaking around six, seven, and eight. So if I'm a dynasty, I'm really making some judgments year five and seven, and thinking eight, is it time to throw the hot potato down? So I'm thinking some of that is going to be useful for dynasty players. It's kind of decision points, not versus age. I mean, people, I'm not sure age versus years in the league kind of thing.
And I think what we're seeing
And it
is
might be contracts too, Dennis.
we're
And I know
one
you.
is one is definitely contracts, 5 years for a rookie, and
There
then
it
that
is.
second contract
There it is. You're losing.
is,
Yeah,
and then the guys that survive,
they're good.
they're still weaning out. But
Yeah.
but here's the thing: in fantasy football, it really matters if you run the ball at quarterback. You get a nice bonus by running the ball. And I
This is
wonder if guys
this
like
is just
Jalen,
this is just looking at
yeah,
overall performance, PPR
yeah.
performance. It doesn't. I don't
A-
care how you get there.
And I think what we're seeing is that quarterbacks, as they want to stay in the league longer,
Mm-hmm.
we've seen their rushing
Go
stats go
down.
down
Yes.
with experience. So the question here is, looking at this chart, we are about to head into that year 8-9 transition for guys like Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts,
You wonder.
who are
Runners.
making a lot of their points with their legs.
Yep.
So might be a good time to sell those guys and get younger. Or and then what we're seeing is the survivors are doing okay. The survivors are doing better than a 3-4 year guy for the most part, but those are just the survivors. So that's your Patrick Mahomes staying in the pocket. That's, your Jared Goff staying in the pocket. Those guys are doing. Baker Mayfield isn't going to be wowing you with his legs, although he can get out and get you a few points, but he's mainly doing it with his arm. Versus a guy like Joe Burrow, who's
Mm-hmm.
doing it almost all with his arm. Maybe we don't see a drop off from him.
Yeah. I don't know, but it's nice to at least understand the top down landscape here. That's why I love this data.
Yeah.
So Dennis, I'm going to show you a lesson here in just very quickly here. Yeah. And we're going to see something. You'd be like, uh-oh. So right now, what I did was uh, I looked at year one, and I sorted my data set from 2013 to 24. First year, second year, so I did first year, and I took the top 25%. Here they are. And I divided, that's in green, but I divided by four. So we actually have some pretty good players, but not in the top 25%. And again, this is overall. You can see some old players, and I like this data because you can look across their arc here a little bit. You can start seeing some things here and seeing. Look at Bo Nix, by the way. Look when he showed up. Look at Deshaun Watson, Winston. Look
Wow.
at Sam Howell. I'm telling people, folks, I'm liking Sam Howell. His first two seasons did well with this Bush LR. He really helped you more than hurt you. But anyway, you can take a look at this. Look at Baker, really good early, down in the minuses, and boy, last year, Dennis, just insane. Almost doubled his sixth year by his seventh year. Really amazing. So I can stare at this and look at that. And Mahomes didn't get so bad. by this, but compared to
Oh
80.87,
man,
yeah,
yeah.
he did. That was his peak year, sixth year, 7 and 8. You wonder, you're not, I mean, I know you love him, but I just, I don't know. But anyway, I have, so I color coded this fourth, this fourth, this fourth, and that fourth. So it's sorted by the best and the worst, uh, the fourths. So then I looked at those four slices and I looked at the career arc. And the career arc is their career average Bush LR right here, this column. Okay. And so what I did was I put all those into the four buckets, took that outside column, I call it the career arc, and I looked at the mean, and you can see, and so 3 or more years in the NFL, okay, divide into fours, year one. So if you look at all the players year one, and you look at the career arc, players that were in the top fourth, their career arc was 0.249. The next was 0.04. That's almost a six-fold difference. And so the lower the number, the worse the average is. And you're thinking, wow, that's really telling you. So if you can't make it year one, we don't need to look at you, year one, select, and you're suspicious. But then when you actually look at the data, so this says there's a difference. This F stat, this ANOVA, there's a difference within, if you compare within these four groups, there's differences that are significant. Okay. And you're suspicious that A, top fourth, and B, second fourth, are really different. It's by sixfold, right? Yeah. Okay. So if you look, this is the actual top 25% and the next 25. Look at the stats. It's insignificant.
Hmm.
So, yeah. So if you look here, Dennis, if you're a trader, if you're superficial, you call this and say, "Oh, big difference. This is how I'm doing it." If you don't take it and you're not thorough, you get tricked. And you're saying, "Well, why is that?" The reason is this: there are enough really spectacular players in the first year that look at him. Josh Allen didn't do good his first year. Uh, you know, some of the other ones didn't do so good their first year, but they really overall kind of bounced back. And so you got to let the first year, the top 25% uh, is suggestive, but you can't throw out the next 25. You can throw out the bottom half. This significance, throw them out. Okay, so any quarterback first year, not in the top 50%, I'd ignore them. Okay, so then I said, okay, what about year two? Long story short, look at the career arc, 0.39, I believe. I can't tell. No, three. So is that nine or zero? I can't tell. But anyway, and look at the next 25%, a minus. So it's about 4 year difference in career arc. That is significant, Dennis. So you actually had a better data here. It's not significant, but year two is when we should judge quarterbacks, Dennis, for their
Huh.
career. Yes.
Very interesting.
Nobody, I don't think anybody's caught that yet. This data says you can. So now, uh, we can look at some of the players and look overall. And so now year two, strong players, uh, you know, this is the career arc of the top year two versus the next, and there's enough difference that the career arc, not year to year, Dennis, you can't, but just overall for dynasty. So you should judge by year two. And I probably should have shown because I can sort this spreadsheet by year two. I do it by green. So Sam Howell is a good year two. Anybody in green, you know, and you're saying, well, you got Winston. Yeah. But I mean, you know, you got to use common sense. He's year 11. No, but he had a pretty good arc. Deshaun Watson last year, I know he sucked, but maybe it's a time. So you got to use your head here. Look at Hurts is still doing good. Dak Prescott dropped, but his career arc. So again, some of these players may be towards the end. I'm not saying you follow them till they blow up. I'm just telling you overall, it's telling you those that are doing well in by year two have got it, and they're going to do about 4 or 5 times better than players that are not top in year two. So something happens. Look at Stroud, Dennis. His year two was not in the top. Really
No.
worried about him.
Yep.
So again, some we don't have, but I'm just saying this can give you some insight. Sam Darnold, he did pretty good last year. So even though Carson Wentz had a good second year and he had a pretty good run, that kind of thing. So you can look to see who was top and who was not for second year. Remember Blake Bortles? He did pretty good. Had a few. Josh Allen, look at him, nice. But again, I think you can still get some play out of him. But maybe you don't want to hang on too long. Trevor Lawrence had a good second year. Derek Carr, but he's been here a long time. So you got to use some common sense. But I'm just saying that Lamar Jackson had a great second year, had a sucky first year, Dennis.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but so what we're picking up on is if a quarterback hadn't done it by the second year, boy, you better really have a good story if you want to, for dynasty. You should you should chuckle. In other words, if people are in love with somebody like Stroud, I think I'd be looking to sell high on him if people are still believers. And maybe you should wait till year three if he comes back a little bit and sell him. I don't know. But anyway, that was a lesson that the average would trick you, but if you get deeper, the data says nope, it's not significant at all here. And so that's my quarterback reading. And again, just going back, the thing that I'll give us for our overall metrics are here, Dennis. So, but I just wanted to look at the career arc concept a little bit more. But I guess I should figure out the difference here between them. But again, the LR is telling you the includes the bad games. So that was the model. And I will preview running backs. I've done the model. This is what the model looks like. That looks like there's more like the tight ends, like the last slice is very negative. So I'm in the process of getting the data for the slice version and the LR for all running backs. And we'll have years experience, and I think we're going to see that they're more fragile. I don't think we get a lot of the running backs to last 10 years. It's really different. But anyway, I've got the model already figured out for the running backs. So that's what I'm going to work on the next year. And here's the background here. Ooh. Okay. But anyway, I
There,
thought I'd just preview this, Dennis. So what do you think about second year? In other words, I wouldn't, if somebody can't make it by the second year, I'd be negative in dynasty on them.
yeah, I definitely see that. And one thing's for sure is if they don't have a first or second year that's good, we don't really have to worry about year three because they won't be there.
Yeah.
But the big question is a player like Justin Fields, who had a very solid second year and then found himself in limbo last year.
Yeah.
Now, if he is in a starting position next season,
Yeah. What does he do?
depending on his ADP, I'll take a chance on him of revitalizing his career because, it'll depend on where he lands.
Mhm.
Do I like the offense where he lands? Do I think he's got a shot? But that second year, having a great year, has said that he's probably someone we need to pay attention to because we've already seen what it did with Baker Mayfield in his career,
And Josh Allen
Josh
and
Allen in
Lamar
his
Jackson.
career, Lamar Jackson. We had Patrick Mahomes in there with his
Yep.
second year was actually his
Really.
first year as a starter, but was really outstanding. So we've seen lots of examples here in recent years of guys who have had a revitalization. And I'm like you, if Sam Howell can hold on
Boy,
to that starting position in Seattle
his
from a
first 2 years were good.
from a fantasy football perspective, this
Yep.
is
Not a
nothing to
real.
do with real football.
Yeah.
From a fantasy football perspective, if he's the only game in town
Yep.
and he can hang on to that job for the full season,
Yep.
he's probably going to have a better than expected result in fantasy football. And that's what we want is we want guys that are going to be great bargains versus ADP who can outperform. And that's the kind of team I want to Frankenstein together for best ball, especially. But even in redraft, he might be my backup. One of the guys I'll consider, along with Fields, as one of the cheap backup options because I love to see the data to back up a player on being a good gamble. So head on over to the Science of Fantasy Football. Check out my article. Follow
Great
the
article.
patterns.
Great article.
Follow the patterns. You can learn a lot there by the patterns. And I'm going to have a couple of follow-up studies on that data as well, as you heard us talking about. And check out all of the professor's work too, folks. You want to find his YouTube channel and you want to look at the lesson plans that he has done over the years because even if you are a cagey fantasy football player, you will learn a lot from the professor. And then, of course, head on back here next week for another edition of the Science of Fantasy Football.
Get to work, folks. Woo woo.
I love that second year
Here.
success.
So for the after the show, look.
Yeah.
So here it is sorted by second year. So again, the top 25%.
Wow.
And, just look, Josh Allen really started, but overall, just take a look at the career arc. But at Sam
Jalen
Howell, yeah,
Jalen
look at,
Hurts was another one.
yeah, Josh Allen didn't do too well.
No, he had a
But
big
look at
turnaround.
Sam Howell.
Yep.
Like I said, Derek Carr had a good second year, but really
Well, he had a good third year too. I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Derek Carr wasn't a lousy
But
quarterback.
and he, when he played, Dennis,
It wasn't awful.
wasn't awful last year.
No.
But 10, 11, 12 years,
He's another cheap option though
he is a cheap, he would
that you
not
want
be
to
my,
look at.
yeah, yeah.
And again,
Look at
the
Fields.
concept being a cheap option in best ball.
Yeah.
In redraft, I'm probably not touching him, but in best ball, he might be my third quarterback.
I mean,
I might
Fields
try
had
to Frankenstein somebody together this year.
yeah, but again, this is just overall. Take a look. Not
Look
every
at
player.
Purdy's numbers.
Yeah, he has really come on year 2 and 3.
Yeah, he should
Yeah,
be solid.
yeah, yeah. And take a look, and again, just look overall. Trevor Lawrence didn't have a bad last year, but really had a great third year.
He was beat up last year, so
So
I
that
would bet on him having a resurgence.
Yeah. And like I said, just uh, looking overall at the data and seeing what's what. But anyway,
Well,
this is that data. I'll have
Sam
that.
Sam Darnold had a great second season,
Yeah, he
and he
did.
bounced back to be just fine.
Yeah.
Very
And
fascinating. That second year theory at quarterback, I've never picked up on that.
well, it's a career arc thing with this metric. That's all it says. I mean, you still got to use common sense, but yeah, yeah,
We don't want to use common sense in
yeah, we
fantasy
do want to
football.
use common sense.
Oh,
Yeah,
we do? Okay.
yeah, yeah. So I'll have some of this out. I just, hadn't got around to it here yet, but I think I had this figure. I don't think I did. I don't know what I do, Dennis. Sometimes I get to the point where uh, I look at it. Yeah, so this is, I guess, Travinsky. Sometimes, yeah. Um, oh, I see. So I broke right here at the next 25%. Sometimes, yeah. So average, and this is the next 25%. So I probably didn't label that. So that's the top 25% for second year. Here's the career arc, and then here's the career arc for the
Wow.
second years that didn't quite make it who they are. And Daniel Jones, yeah, Stroud really worries me.
Yeah, I'm worried about Stroud as
Worried
well.
about Anthony Richardson too, Dennis. I
Yeah.
don't know how long his legs can keep you in the game.
So speaking of Anthony Richardson, I'm having I got a trade request in FPPC, but when I went to go look at the trade, I don't see it anywhere. Can you look at
Yeah,
your account and see if that trade is still in there?
yeah. He
I
may have.
couldn't.
They may have canceled it.
He might have because man, it was I was drooling over it. It had we were giving up Bucky and we were
Mhm.
giving up Richardson.
Now there's
But
no trade.
okay, so the trade was let me rename this file and then I'll go and tell you why. I tried to get to the trade and I didn't see it right away and I'm like, damn, I got to keep closer tabs on this because what we were offered, I couldn't say yes fast enough to it. But again, by the time I got there, the trade was missing.
He probably.
It must have been a drunk trade
Yeah.
because we were offered. Um, oh, okay. I read it as Bijan Robinson. It's not. It was Brian Robinson. So he offered us Brian Robinson,
Yeah.
Rashee Rice, and Drake May for Waddle, Richardson, and Irving. I read that as Bijan the first time I looked at it.
Right.
Um, but even Brian Robinson, Rashee Rice, and Drake May, I might take that deal because we've been underperforming with Waddle, and I'm worried about Richardson as well. I love Drake May. I think I think he's going to be a good hit this year. Um, but yeah, okay. So he took that trade away as expected. That makes sense because that was a juicy deal on our part. I would have loved that one.
Yeah, that would have been good. Uh,
Oh,
so
okay. I see. It says he withdrew the trade. So he
yeah,
withdrew it. Let's see. How quick did he withdraw it? So he made the trade offer and he withdrew it. Um, looks like it was about 4 minutes.
4 minutes. That's funny.
That is funny.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Well,
Should have been quicker.
yeah,
Missed the 4 minute window, and it was
yeah,
at like it was late at night. This must have been a drunk trade.
yeah. And
That was ten
that's
twenty. Yeah, 10:24. The trade came to us. Oh, it was even quicker. 10:25. So it was 1 minute.
yeah, yeah,
That's hilarious.
yeah. So anyway, I added these to it. Like I said, if I do the lesson. So career arc, top 25% year two, these are all the players. And then the next 25%. So, and here's their career. So if you add that, average these group with this group, this is 4 to 5 times better career. Yeah, I know there's, some that are okay, but take a look overall. There's not a lot of failures in here.
No,
Yeah.
no.
So it's that, and again, this data here is where this comes from, and
Hmm.
it's looks good. 4x higher career arc. So Brock Purdy's now's the time to, even Kyler Murray. I don't know which ones. Justin Fields you might get him as a throw in
Yeah, yeah.
kind of thing. Sam Howell, there's some suspicious ones there, for you to look at. But anyway, here's this data as
I
well.
love that
So,
data.
and we've statistically, looked at it, and it's pretty neat, I think, having and looking, and nobody I don't think's ever reported
I've never
this
seen
as a
anything on
as a
second.
career arc.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. And yeah,
I love
so
that second year data thing.
yeah, yeah.
That's something that is a good again, that what I love about that, professor, is we're not saying um we're not saying it's going to be a hit every single time.
No, no.
Okay. What you're looking at is a cost to acquire.
Yeah,
And if that cost to acquire is very cheap, why the hell wouldn't you take the chances on it?
yeah. Oh,
So,
I agree.
ooh, well, this is interesting. Gesicki just agreed to a 3-year contract extension with the Bengals. Last week, everybody was so sure he was gone.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yep. So I probably need to go and look at the quarterbacks that are active and look at their career arc.
Yes.
So I'll look at that, and we'll see what's going on. But anyway, I'll try to have this cleaned up before I do the video, and then I'm gonna have running backs. So I'm looking forward to cracking that open and seeing the survivorship, looking at the years experience where the LR breaks, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. I'm
Yep.
curious. So we should next couple of weeks I should have the running backs, and then we'll go on to the wide receivers. So I think it's going to be good. I know the few people are listening. Thanks for listening, by the way, folks. I hope we're helping. Yeah, and looking forward to the expo. I think we'll have fun there. We just need to decide. I don't know if I want all these fancy experiences. I think I just
Yeah.
want. I don't know.
I just want the draft night out in the
Yeah,
Hall of Fame, probably.
yeah, yeah. I'm not sure I want my own draft night out. It's more fun to huddle around together and give everybody the evil eye while we're crushing them.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
That
We had
was that
that
was
was fun.
hilarious.
Yeah, I
That was
think
absolutely the fact that we had a certain someone
yeah.
who
Next to you.
just doesn't like me at all
Yeah,
that was there. I to me
made it sweeter.
that made it more fun, and then to
Yeah,
beat him during the regular season was also good.
yeah,
But yeah, there's something in my makeup, I guess, that enjoys that sort of thing more than I probably should.
yeah. Dennis,
But
you're a little too gleeful at people's misery. Dennis.
I
Yeah,
do enjoy a little misery on
yeah,
other people's parts.
yeah.
So
That's sad. I think we'll couple weeks out or so. Let's breakfast with the science guys,
yeah, I think that's a good idea.
and see invite people if they want to meet us. Just Just look, we're going to be here. If you're here, come on, sit down and just go from there. And, and who knows? I mean, people may show, they may not, but we'll have a uh, Saturday and a Sunday meeting. That'd be 2 days.
That
So
would be fun.
yeah, if people want to meet with us, I have no agenda. Just hey, let's talk. Whatever.
No, we got
BS.
to
I don't.
have some fun is
Yeah,
the whole idea.
I
Yeah.
think so. I think so. Well, I'm going to maybe watch the Missouri Stakes at Oakland today. I
Ooh,
think
that'll be good.
so.
That'll
There'll
be good.
probably be some tricky trainers and jockeys ciphering here. I hadn't even looked at the. I think they drew the post positions. I saw it in the paper, but I didn't really pay attention yet. So
Yeah, I have
see,
not really looked
I hadn't
at
really
too
focused on the
much.
Kentucky
Yeah.
Derby Trail so far. I need to kind of start looking at the points and who's gathering across the country here.
Yeah,
And
this is the time of the year that I always did start doing that back when my dad was alive. We would
right, start
often have
tracking
some,
them.
yeah. I'm actually working on an article um about how I got here in life type of thing. And
It's good.
it's called It's All Bud's Fault.
Yeah,
So it's going to be blaming my dad for
that's good.
good, everything good that
Yeah, blame your
him
dad for
for
the
everything.
goodness. Yeah, I like it.
But it's amazing when I started doing this last study, how much of my horse racing
Mhm.
theology
Yeah,
comes into play. And it's, just looking for those relationships and in the data is always the
but
key to me.
fantasy. I'm very consistent in my winning. And in horse racing,
Yes.
it was not that way. I'd have great
No.
years and I'd have crash years.
Well, I've got a theory behind that.
Yeah. What's your
So
thing?
my theory is that when it comes to fantasy football, we're when we go up against people, and I don't mean this to sound cocky,
Yeah.
but we learned this at Expo. I mean, we were exposed to the people that are supposed to be the elite in
Yeah.
fantasy football, and we understood the complexity of the game better than many of those people did. So I believe that if you were to come up with some kind of a ranking system for, that bases knowledge of the game, execution in leagues and all these factors that matter, we're probably in the upper 15 percentile of fantasy players at the level that we play,
Right.
at the amount of dollars that we play. And I think in horse racing, we're probably average. you know, it's but it's have we ever broken down the horse racing game the way we've broken this down? And in my history, the answer is no, with the exception of harness racing when I was really into it for those number of years. And when I was really into it, I have the same attack strategy as I have now in fantasy football.
Yeah.
I kept a memo book in my back pocket, made notes about bad trips, about what happened in races, horse by horse, race by race. If there was a really, really bad trip, I knew what it was. If a horse broke a little bit late, I knew what it was. Whatever it was that happened, I had my little notebook for that I kept. And you go back to look at that now, you don't have to in horse racing because there's so much data out there.
Hmm.
But I never attacked the flats the way I attacked fantasy football.
No.
and I've not had the success. So
No.
it tells me that the lack of success in horse racing, or like I like to say, the hit or miss success at horse racing. Like
Yes.
I can go and have an exceptionally good week in horse race handicapping, but I never was as serious about it as I have been with fantasy football.
Oh, big difference.
The data just, I think the data just intrigues me more in fantasy football, to the point that I think you can beat the best. I'm not so sure if I did the same sort of data study in horse racing that I could ever beat the best. I would probably move up to maybe top 30 percentile, whereas now I'm probably just slightly below average in
Right.
flats, and in harness I might be slightly above average. The
Yeah.
difference in harness is you got to find your spots, because there's so many more favorites and low price horses
Yep.
versus the flats. Flats, you can find prices every day. Harness, you could find prices a few times a week. That's the difference in it, but it's the difference in the form. Once a harness horse starts hitting a peak form, he stays there for 6, 7, 8 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
In thoroughbreds, what, you may have 3 or 4
Yep.
before you
Maybe.
start tailing off.
Yep.
So that's the difference in, but I think that's the difference of success and failure versus the two sports. I think we're just smarter in fantasy football. And that's not a conceited thing to say. That's nobody's doing this research
Yep.
the way we
No.
are. And
No.
it's paying off.
Yep.
But I never did that research to that level in flats.
No. No.
In now I do somewhere have I gotta find it. One of the projects that I'm doing this year is I'm repackaging and restoring a lot of stuff, old notes and stuff that I saved for years, old shit. Somewhere in a box, I have Lenny Sokol's strategies that he used to target prices at the flats. He was my dad's handicapping guy that put out the tip sheet for years.
Yeah.
And he'd have a decision tree
Nice.
of finding, like, it was, and again, it was a study that he did over many years that I'll guarantee it still works. Like, it just found you good horses. And the funny thing is I can still exploit that at lesser tracks if I'm patient, because one of the things was finding, this was built for Arlington Park mainly, Arlington and Hawthorne
Yeah.
mainly, and picking up on the horses coming from New York and LA were the keys. If
Right.
one of the things was, if the horse ran a competitive race against similar or higher class on the New York circuit, he was going to just mop up on at Chicago. When they came to Chicago, he kicked ass. I used that once. I went to when I was living out east. I went to Delaware race track, which is really a beautiful facility, but a really lousy set of horses.
Yeah.
And I had shippers coming in from Belmont or from Churchill Downs to Delaware. It was like they injected them with super fluid, because they were 5 lengths better at Delaware than they were at the other tracks. But it was just running against worse company, and it was finding those. And for some reason, they got ignored on the tote board. And I was cashing like 5, 6 to 1 on horses that I thought should have been like 6 to 5, 7 to 5.
Yeah.
but
Nice.
that was using one of Lenny's old adages, which of course became one of my dad's old adages about the different circuits. The quality horse was shittier in Chicago,
Yeah.
and if you had a horse shipping in for grade 3 stakes in Chicago versus the Chicago horses, man, he was kicking their ass, and there was no question about it. But anyway, he had a whole bunch of he had like a decision tree. I got it, and I'm hoping to find that. I
You need to
probably got it
find
sitting
that.
in a
I'd be
box somewhere,
curious what it looks like
but I got
myself.
some of my old notes that I'll have to
Nice.
dredge up if I
Yeah,
can
we'll
find them
take a look at
someday.
that. That'd be great. I'd
But
like it.
anyway, that's my theory, Professor. I think we're better at this because we've studied it more. We're smarter
And
than
we're
the
only
average bear.
against 12 people
We're against 12
or
people, and
11.
it's a
Yeah.
season long thing.
Yeah.
So
So you do have time to correct things.
yes, yeah, it's a very different game than parimutuel betting.
Yep.
And that's the big difference. And it's just rigged to, like, it's built parimutuel wagering is built to take your money.
Yeah.
Like, you've got a
It,
15% takeout. You're you've got to be better than that
oh, the
takeout.
exotics are
Oh yeah,
25%
they're
or
huge.
more. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying is you need to beat the rake, and you can't, it's hard to beat the rake.
Yep.
Whereas in fantasy football,
You can beat the rake.
you can beat the rake because the rake gets lost
Yes.
in the way the prize money is given out, especially in FPPC.
Yep.
Like with so many of these, like when it's winner take all,
It's winner take all.
you don't have to win many leagues to
Yep.
to have a profit. And
Yep.
the way they do it with second place, I mean, I've got so many free chances this year
Oh
based on
yeah.
just running
I'm
runners up.
excited about, let's see. I have one, two, three, let's see. I got and by the way, I don't know what they've got all sorts of tournaments and stuff already. I don't know if people
Yeah.
have gone to that, and it's like, I don't know. So if you share, so yeah, so this is my account. I got $1,970,
Very
and
nice.
here's all the frees.
Holy shit, you do have a load of freeze.
Dennis, I did
That's
well last year.
beautiful.
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
I am not going to be able to spend all this money because they're just not, because of the time. Yeah, if I
Yes.
was good at June, then I would play everything. I'd have
Yeah.
60 or 70 leagues,
Yeah.
but I'm not. My data says I'm losing money, and I refuse to donate money.
No,
So
no.
I'm gonna be going crazy here. Here's our people see our dynasty. I think I've shared this before. Here we are. So uh, I'm so proud we got Irvin there. Uh,
Yeah.
I
That
wonder
was
where Cooper's going. He's leaving.
he's leaving, but that might actually be better for us next
Yeah,
year. He's going to be
Devonta
one of those.
Smith should be good.
Yes, Devonta will be good. I Lamb's obviously a
I
beast.
think Giovanni Woods. It's time to cut him loose.
I think he'll be the cut. But I'll tell you,
I don't know about Richardson or Stroud. I feel like we should see if somebody drops somebody that may be out there. I
well,
don't know
the
what's out there,
well,
but
the interesting thing is I saw the transactions. Go to the transactions. This is going to shock you of who got cut.
okay.
So
So
you look at all, yeah.
let's see. This is
That's
way.
just us. That's oh well, there we
Oh,
go. No, that was just lineup changes. Go to
how do I
yeah,
see that?
go ahead and uh
Settings, trades.
Yeah, that's us. I think that might just be us. I thought I saw
Yeah,
last time I
trade.
went to transactions, I thought I saw that somebody cut Tua.
Let's see. Yeah, live scoring team league, maybe league
Yeah,
transactions.
that might be it.
I don't league
Yeah,
chat
go down, go down, go down. There,
transaction.
transactions. Look at this. Tua. Tua got dropped.
Oh, I don't know why. Oh, trade.
There you go.
Oh,
It's loading now.
is it?
Oh,
Well,
no, go
yeah,
back there. Yeah. Look
I'm
at
trying to do it all, and it's not.
yeah,
It's just showing. Yeah, I see
but it
Tua.
shows Tua was dropped, and I think that's one that I'm looking at that going, man, that's where do you draft Tua? Because
Yeah,
we can draft the veterans in the rookie draft. So,
yeah.
I'm not sure when you make that move, but if he is definitely, yeah, I'd go
Oh, this is
yeah, that's just
dropped.
lineup changes.
Dropped. Well, it's not a lot of people drop. They
Yeah,
drop Tua.
Tua is crazy to drop him. That was nuts. So yeah, I'm
Yeah,
looking at that going, man, if we can I was hoping that Richardson started the season big, like had a really good start to the season last year, and I was
yeah.
gonna let
Try
him
to.
go. But
Yeah, I just don't.
um yeah, that'll be the
Well,
key
it's
is
having Stroud and him. It looks like I would like a little bit more solid player to
yeah,
stream
yep.
with Goff.
Yeah, I mean if we can if in the second round of the draft,
Hmm.
after we get two, let's say it goes according to form, what I think is going to be form, and we are able to get two running backs with the 11th pick and then the third pick in the second round. So the
Right.
15th pick.
Hmm.
With our second pick in the second round going at
Right.
11, I'm telling you, I'm if Tua's on the board, I'm taking him. Like that's gonna be. I know it'll give us four quarterbacks again, but I don't have a lot of faith in Stroud and Richardson, especially looking at this year two data. That
It's
scares me.
suspicious.
It's suspicious. So, there aren't many guys that beat that.
Yeah.
That's beating that is low. And for us to have two guys
Yeah.
that hit that mark, that's not good. I'd be worried if we didn't have Goff. I think Goff is our kind of our savior there.
Yeah. I agree.
Um, and Richardson is he's either going to be a huge hit or a big miss. Like there's no middle ground with him. Um, but yeah,
I think Stroud gets another year, but if
Stroud will
he,
definitely be in there. Yeah. Stroud is like a long-term guy,
I mean,
but
the reason with Richardson, he's got legs, but Stroud's going to be there. And so
yes.
I
Yeah.
think he'll play a lot more. I could see Richardson being shut down again.
And here's the thing is if you look at when Stroud has had healthy wide receivers,
Yeah.
his performance has been really good. So they got Kirk to go with Collins.
Yeah.
If they add another wide receiver,
Yeah.
then I think Stroud's looking okay. Like,
Well,
you,
I'm looking at his last, 6 games. He
oh, they
only
were awful.
yeah,
They were
had
awful.
two above 20.
Yeah, yeah. But look at his first 6 games last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
If you
But
get that all season,
yeah.
and that's when he had both Diggs and Collins,
Hmm.
and if in Tank Dell. So if you get that performance all year,
Hmm.
all of a sudden we're looking at a whole different quarterback.
Hmm.
But that he had, like, as soon as he lost his wide receivers, he sucked. Like,
Uh,
he could not manufacture anything on
yeah.
his own.
Just want to let you know, sometimes data is a little funky. Look at week 7 last year was their bye week,
Yeah,
and Stroud still
yeah,
scored 6 points
yeah.
according to them. That
That
ain't
doesn't.
right.
No, their data is kind of
Some
weird.
something's weird.
Their data is weird.
But boy, look at this stretch: 16, 14,
Oh
14,
God, yeah.
14, 20, 16, 13, 28, 6. Man, he put a dagger in your
Oh,
heart. If you were
he
limping
was.
along with
Oh
him,
Lord,
he
yeah.
killed you week 17 and 18. There
We.
went your money right there.
Oh, we. The only thing that gave us a good season was that golf was great because
Yep.
we didn't even hesitate. But yeah, his bye week was actually week 14 last year.
I don't know what that week
So
7
that's
was.
weird that they, because week 6 he played New England. So they
Yeah.
had a bad, their data had a little hiccup apparently.
Yeah. But look at week 15, 16, 17 last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
Man, that was gravy.
Yeah.
I mean,
We had
week
a really good
13
run.
on, I
Yeah.
mean, he killed us week 12, but boy, he really did well. I mean, early, look at the first 3 games, but boy, he picked it up after that, had a few downtime, but boy, that's what got us to second place.
Yes. Yeah.
It sure did.
He was carrying us. Stroud's MVP in the first 6 games last year,
Uh-huh.
or first 6 games when he had both of his 83.3.
Yeah,
Not great,
right.
but not going to kill you. But
Yeah.
my God, he was awful later in the year. When he was bad, he was really bad, and he
Yeah.
was a classic example of that, of your LR version
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
push number.
and if you looked at that, the Stroud, uh, you know, the the data there, I think let's see. So I had, and like I said, once I get this done, this will be the file I'll send you. Hey, so look at Stroud, 26, 25 minutes.
Ugh.
Just he didn't do anything. Hey, uh, but not good, not good at all.
No,
Yeah.
that is awful. Actually,
And
that's at a level of
Richardson was better. I don't know.
41 2 out of Richardson is not great,
No.
but yeah, he just really baffles me. On the weeks he's really good, he is really unbelievable. But boy, he had a lot of bad weeks
Yeah,
last
he
year,
did. He really did.
and he can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
That's like the
Yeah.
combination effort that
Yeah.
you don't
I
want
know
at
it.
quarterback.
I know it. Well, we will have lots of time to cipher, but I'll have those two. Uh, at the end, I'll send you all of it and let you start fusing it with your MVP and stuff. So
Perfect.
we'll start having some interesting data to look at, start looking at the team landscapes, looking at the global data. All our metrics is what I'm interested. Maybe that's another way to spot some opportunities that way.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
I think what our when we put all of our metrics together, I think more than anything else, it eliminates the risk early in the
well,
process.
if it, let's just say, I think it will tell us the risk if we want to
Yes.
gamble. I always heard in horse racing that if you're betting a long shot, you better have some good story behind it. Not just, it's a pretty horse. You
Yeah.
need to have, like mom was a mutter or got some turf
Yep.
breeding or
Yep.
coming from another track, like you say, the Belmont to Arlington. You better have a story. In fact, the more angles to the story, probably the more you should bet. I always heard, if you got new jock, a young upcoming trainer, and they're coming from Belmont into Arlington, and you got a lot
Yep.
of factors happening, and you're getting 8-1, 10-1. I mean, it's time to really load up. So I always heard that you need a story. And if you can't find a story, then walk away. So we need a good story if we're going to ignore our metrics, Dennis.
Yeah, and I heard a great version of that at the horse races earlier this week at one of the tracks. I always flip on the race
Yeah, me too.
or horse channel and
Yeah.
I'm just working around on stuff. This lady came out and she said she was talking about, and I remember it was the 7 horse in this race, and he was like 17-1. And her good story was there's no speed in this race.
That's a story.
Okay. And this horse in his, and this was a maiden claiming race. So it was
Right.
like crap horses that it was going against. And it was like its 7th start. The last 3 or 4 starts were nothing.
Yeah.
The first 3 starts, it showed some speed.
Right.
And then it was away for a long time. It came back and has not been good. And then away for a while, came back and had just one freshening race. They're cutting back the distance and had shown speed its first 3 races of its career. And her argument was this is a great horse to bet to win only.
Right.
Because if he gets out of the gate and could show some speed, it can be a merry-go-round race
Right.
where nobody has the strength to pass this horse. If he doesn't break, he'll probably finish last.
Yeah.
And the other guy on one of the other handicappers was like, well, I don't think that's much of an angle here. I have this horse and I think he's only going to finish first, really condescending.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to this argument. I'm going, well, I'm not betting this horse because it's a maiden claiming race.
Right.
But I liked that rationale
Yeah.
that
It's a
if
story.
there's a story, and of course it didn't break, it was left in the gate. Literally, it just like really got off to just a walking start and finished last. But the horse that this guy was all over can't miss. He's 3-1. He should be even money, all the he was next to last. So it was just kind of hilarious to see this. It reminded me of the fantasy football mindset. This guy can't miss.
Yeah.
And it's like, God, we got to have, we got to. I like that theory. If you're going to bet on a long shot, it's like our Sam Howell play. If he is the starter in Seattle, he's probably going to be on a lot of best ball teams.
Yeah.
As I'm assuming he'll be
Cheaper.
He'll be
Yeah.
cheap. He'll be like
A good
20th off
second.
the board.
Yeah. A good QB 2 or 3.
He'll
Yeah.
be a good 3 or 2, depending on what you take at 1,
Right.
and
If you're doing a late quarterback, he'll probably be a 2.
he'll, yeah. And he's worth that bet, but he's got a story.
He
Like
does have a story.
there's a story there, and
Yeah.
you know what it is, but you also understand that he might not have a job by week 9, because he's not that good at real football.
Yeah.
But if he ends up starting
You'll get some good weeks out of him.
15 weeks, he's probably giving you that top slice.
Yep.
2 or 3 times.
Yeah. Or
I'll
more.
take that at cheap price.
Yep.
But no, I really do think that we are going to attack these drafts at quarterback a lot smarter than, and we did a good job the last 2 years.
Yeah.
But we have done the work to be smart, even smarter next season. And it's understanding when to pull the trigger. And I think I got it figured out at tight end as well. So
That's good.
Be interesting to go over that data.
Well, I've got those metrics as well. So like I said, we'll
Yeah.
have all the metrics.
I love attacking position by position. on the
Yep.
show here.
Yep.
I think
I
it's
like
good.
that. That's good. Well, we'll next week we'll maybe talk about your chart for MVP and for running backs, and I'll hopefully have some initial
All right.
data as well. And whatever. We'll have plenty to talk about. That's
Oh,
the fun. We
yeah.
never we never can shut up. We can't shut us up.
Well, the data is just fascinating
Yeah, it
at
is.
at each of the positions. And I think the thing that really intrigues me of what you're doing with this Bush number, and I mean, we're talking the ultimate scientific method here,
Yeah.
is we're not treating each position the same. You are letting the data decide which is more important and which is less important and which to use to penalize guys. And that I've never seen done before. Even my MVP handles things pretty much the same. And it's the it's the ciphering of the data at each position that then makes it different. But you're attacking it in a way that I think it's going to be powerful because each position will have a different profile based on your Bush number. And I told you last year, I thought that was going to be a game changer when you first introduced that. And the more you're digging into this
Yep.
and the more you're refining the attack, the more valuable this is becoming.
I think so. Hope so. Well, we probably got to go. It's 12:10.
Oh, the last thing,
Yeah.
the what you just said, I hope so. In in fantasy football jargon, nobody ever talks in that way. Nobody understands the limitations of their data or their understanding of the game. It gets back to that range of outcomes thing.
Yeah. And
And
that's yeah.
we're smarter on the range of outcomes. And that's going to be our key to success. I wish we were that good at horse racing range of outcomes. We'd be
I
much better
think
off.
the amount of work it you need a team and
Yes. Yeah.
you need yeah, and I think there's syndicates that are already there and they're using computers and algorithms to do all that. So you're having to fight the rake
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
sharp and you can't do that in fantasy because there's only 11 people with you.
Yeah.
You,
Yeah.
you you can't have strangers showing up week 15 and you're playing against them and then they're gone. I mean,
Yeah. I
you're
think,
playing, it's a very different playing field.
and I think the analogy is trying to beat DFS in
Yes,
fantasy football. There's just too many damn sharks in that water.
there's a lot of
Um,
sharks.
I don't like I don't like swimming with the sharks. I'd prefer to be, we're playing with the silly porpoises in
Yeah,
our
I like
pool,
that. Yeah.
and that's a lot safer. Like they
Yeah,
might,
well, I'm here to make money, bottom line.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's why I say I think the DFS pool is intriguing. That puzzle is intriguing, but as we discovered in year one of looking at it, it's more complex. And I
Yeah.
don't I don't think it has the payoff that we were hoping it had.
Yeah.
Um,
I hadn't got around to that, but I will tweak with that. It may be uh, time wise, may not have the time I need to get deep.
yeah,
I think I'll just try to build the database and, at some point get ahead. But right
but
now, I'm full speed ahead on getting our metric because we need to confirm what we think
yes,
we saw last year.
yes, yes, yes,
We
yeah,
just
and
need to confirm that.
yeah, I think you're correct.
Yeah. And that we can't you got to make sure your house is in order before you start figuring stuff out outside. You need
Yeah,
to be inside. So we need to
yep,
get our house in order, and that's what we're going to do this year is get these metrics tighter. and I think it's going to pay off even more. So I'm hoping. And like I said, if we have time, I wouldn't mind another dynasty team if we do want to invest
Yeah.
in that.
Yeah, let's add another one in. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, and at some point, if
Because yeah,
yeah,
I definitely think it's a good idea this year with you having as much of a balance as you've got. We
yeah,
might and I'm in the same situation where I know that I'll be, I can add one too. I the hit percentage on Startup Dynasty for me is so
is
strong
yeah,
that
that's why I
yeah,
think it might be to our advantage to get that.
yeah, let's definitely do that this year. We can draft that a little bit earlier than our redraft.
Yes,
And
uh,
I think that'll be a good stepping off point because right after I do all my rookie drafts in Dynasty,
yeah,
that's a perfect time to do a new Dynasty because
yeah,
you
because
then
you're ready to
understand
go.
the rookie game at that point.
Yeah, see where people are at.
Yep.
The value. Got to find the
Yes.
value.
And typically in Dynasty, they value the shiny new things so much more than those 27, 28-year-old wide receivers. And
Right.
that's why I win in Dynasty upstarts is by aging my team early and understanding that year 4 or 5 I'll have to be good at the draft or the
Yeah.
rookie drafts or I'm gonna get old in a hurry.
Yeah.
And but most of these doggone leagues aren't lasting that
No.
long, over on sleeper. So it's
And
it's been a winning
FFPC, they
strategy.
last.
FPPC, they last longer, so it's got to be a little hybrid between what I do and what but it's different than redraft, but it's a hybrid
Yeah.
between what I've done in the past
Yeah.
and what will work on the FPPC. This that that competition is so much fun because we get good enough players that if you win, you accomplished it.
Yep.
I think sometimes in some of the sleeper leagues, it's like, okay, I'm beating up on
Yeah.
real weak players. There is no weakness in FPPC.
No,
So you are,
everybody's pretty sharp.
they're sharp, but we're still at the higher echelon
Yep.
of that group as far as understanding the data in the game. And
Yep.
that's going to be our key to success. But again, if we can win at FPPC, it makes me very interested to win on other platforms where I don't think the competition's as great.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Cherry pick.
Yep.
Okay, man, I'm gonna stop recording.